The NFL regular season is finally over, and with that comes Black Monday, where a bunch of NFL coaches have to face the question of whether or not they'll be around for the following season. We've already seen 7 coaches get fired or released or just have their contracts expire this offseason, and we could possibly see a few more. Let's get into it. There are 7 total head coaching vacancies around the NFL. Welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Some of those vacancies have been around for a little while now. Jon Gruden was let go in the middle of the season. We all know the controversy that still surrounds him. He doesn't look to be a candidate anytime in the future for an NFL head coaching gig, so we can go ahead and cross his name out for potential vacancies as well. The other vacancy was Urban Meyer being let go by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just an absolutely horrible debut by Urban Meyer in the NFL. I would look to him never being around the NFL ever again. Commentary as far as like college games possibly is in his future, maybe even a college coaching gig. But the NFL and him just did not seem to agree with one another. In their place, the interim head coaches performed quite admirably. The Oakland Raiders continued their season, rebounded quite effectively, and even made the playoffs this year, while the Jacksonville Jaguars kept a team out of the playoffs, allowing the Raiders to get in the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts played an absolutely terrible game, while the Jacksonville Jaguars played possibly their best game of the season. They were able to keep the Colts out of the end zone for most of that game. They dominated for much of that game as well, and they were quite honestly the better team on the field. Now, will they be going forward next season? We'll see. Other head coaching vacancies were quite obvious. The New York Giants were able to let go of Joe Judge after initial reports sounded like he was going to say. We all kind of knew that wasn't going to happen as far as how terribly they performed towards the end of the season. He wasn't really prepared for the bright spotlights in New York. He had a good initial run his first season, but as far as the offense, that offense was quite possibly one of the worst in NFL history. As far as the last game of the season, when you see him attempt a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 9, backed up to their 5-yard line. I get it. You want to get some yards for your team. That way your punter can get out there and just punt that ball away. It's 3rd and 9. Your crowd is, wearing paper bags over their face, saying they were once Joe Judge fans. It was time for him to go, and he left. Mike Zimmer, as far as with the Minnesota Vikings, he's been there quite a long time, as well as the GM, Rick Spielman. Both have had their heyday there. Both have had their down days. Personally, I think Mike Zimmer is one hell of a coach. Through everything he's gone through coaching an entire season with literally one eye. I mean, that's one tough guy. I look for him to get an NFL coaching gig, possibly even a head coaching gig on one of these other vacancies. But it was just time to go. The message had gotten stale with the Vikings. The defense had some turnover. Their better players were starting to play for other teams. Their first-round picks weren't panning out. While they got a couple of picks to hit in Justin Jefferson on the offensive side, they just never were able to solve that quarterback problem, even with trying to sign a outside quarterback to come in. Kirk Cousins just never lived up to the contract that he signed, and that's why I look for him to be on a different team possibly next year as well. But Mike Zimmer, hats off to you for a great 8 years or so in Minnesota, and it's just time for a new coach, a new voice, and we'll see what happens with the Vikings going forward. The other teams that are out there, Houston kind of made a surprising cut with David Culley. They were not expected to win a single game after all the veterans they let go, all the talent that went out the door, signing people for 1-year contracts, not drafting a quarterback until Davis Mills. I was actually very impressed with Davis Mills and the development they had, but it sounds like the offensive coordinator and the ownership didn't see eye to eye, and the ownership wanted him out. Culley wanted the offensive coordinator to stick around, knowing that continuity for a young quarterback is very important, and seems like his head was put on the chopping block for that. However, a 4-13 season, while on the outside of it doesn't look great, with what that team had to work with, that's one hell of a coaching job. Kind of surprised he ended up getting the boot, but he was kind of a last-second hire. Hey, just lead us into this terrible season kind of a coach. but he performed quite well, and he deserves a round of applause for the job he did this year. The not so surprising would be Matt Nagy being let go by the Chicago Bears. He performed well down the stretch, but he couldn't save his job. Ever since his rookie season, the double doink game with the Bears, it's just been a slow downhill cycle for them. Pace, the GM, was also let go. And while I agree that the moves that he made were win-now moves, that team was never ready to win now. Their defense was always the best calling card for that team, and they just never had an offense to live up to it. Matt Nagy, while an offensive mind and was able to bring out some of the better qualities in Trubisky obviously wasn't the right choice by Pace. Pace actually was able to select a second first-round quarterback and live to tell about it for one season. Justin Fields did not take the field early, and that's why I believe Matt Nagy was let go as well. Just the writing was on the wall the entire season long. Andy Dalton played well, not great, but well in his stead as quarterback there. But this season was about developing Justin Fields, and both Pace and Nagy all missed the boat on this one. Having a rookie year go this way with Matt Nagy clearly is going to stunt his development. The final head coaching vacancy that we have out there is definitely a doozy. Brian Flores was let go by the Miami Dolphins. It always seems like this ownership group has always had an issue with retaining head coaches for more than 2 or 3 seasons. Adam Gase was let go. A whole bunch of other coaches, Joe Philbin, and a whole bunch of others that have had some modicum of success. Others have not. In the case of Brian Flores, it seems like the relationship that he had with the GM there just kind of deteriorated as the season went on. And while it seems like he was one of the proponents for Tua and ended up building this season and recovering this season to the point where they almost made a playoff spot, it wasn't enough to save his job. The Dolphins always seem to be on the lookout for what's the next great thing that's going to get them over the top. They weren't able to pull off the trade for Deshaun Watson in the offseason. During the season, we'll see if they're able to do so in the offseason. But the firing of Brian Flores is honestly, quite frankly, a surprise. He was able to get the most out of this defensive team. The offensive pieces are there. They just haven't had the offensive mind to be able to put it all together. And Tua Tagovailoa, while a rookie the previous year, coming into this season was expected to take that next step, and he never did. It was more of a game manager type of approach for Tua Tagovailoa, and that's not what he was built as coming out of college. So hopefully they'll bring in an offensive mind that can get the most out of Tua Tagovailoa or the other quarterback, whoever they decide to bring in. But this team needs a jolt on the offensive side of the ball. That defense is great as far as takeaways that can stop the run. But this team, while letting go of Brian Flores is a shock, maybe they're looking to see their offense get a little bit better. Brian Flores is not going to go without a job for very long. The Houston Texans have already interviewed interviewed him for that job. He has a relationship with the GM there through the Patriots. I think he's quite possibly the front runner there. Top candidates on the market for head coaches. The Cowboys offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn, respectively, are going to be hot names on the coaching circuit. Dan Quinn already removed his name from the Jacksonville Jaguars search, and I can understand why. That coach is going to have to be an offensive mind, and so I look for an offensive-minded coach to end up there. Dan Quinn is probably going to be the favorite for both the Denver job and the Chicago job as far as a defensive-minded coach. Chicago just never seems to get out of their way as far as always wanting that defense to be great. They need to bring in an offensive mind, which is why the other top head coaching candidate out there is Jim Harbaugh. It's funny what one game in college means to your prospects as far as a job. Jim Harbaugh, if he had lost that game against Ohio State, we're talking about him taking a pay cut at Michigan instead of continuing on and becoming the name he is now for head coaching jobs in the NFL. Now, as far as other names that are out there, Byron Leftwich, Todd Bowles, some retreads out there. There's also the offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, Nathaniel Hackett anyway. And then, of course, the longest name that's been out there that just has not had a chance to really grasp a head coaching job is Eric Bieniemy. I've yet to really hear his name in conjunction with any job, but he's been long deserving of a head coaching job. These jobs that are needed for an offensive mind to come in there, Jacksonville, Chicago, those kinds of jobs, he should be a front runner for those jobs. We'll see if his name ends up getting thrown in there, but he's a man who's deserved a job for a very long time. Let us know in the comment section which coach you think is going to sign where. Don't forget Doug Peterson was let go by the Eagles last year, and so he's out there on the market as well. Maybe a veteran head coach would be exactly what's needed to possibly turn the fortunes around for the Vikings. Maybe he ends up there. Let us know in the comment section where you think these coaches are going to end up. Tell us what your favorite team and if you think your coach should still be there. Thanks for joining the Upside.